I'm Tony Brooks with the Wilkes-Barre Preservation Society, and welcome to Diamond City, a Trail of History, a series of architectural and social history tours of Wilkes-Barre. Today we explore Hollenback Cemetery and the 14 Revolutionary War veterans that are buried here. Hollenback Cemetery was organized in 1855 on land donated by George Hollenback. Today there are 16,000 burials in this cemetery. It's practically filled. We're going to start with the Butlers, Zebulon Butler and his son Lord Butler. Undoubtedly you've heard of the name Butler. Just about every street in the Wyoming Valley has a Butler Street. There's a Butler Street in Kingston, Butler Street in 40 Fort, in Pittston, and Plymouth, in Wyoming. And as you come down Wilkes-Barre Boulevard to downtown Wilkes-Barre, you'll cross over Butler Street. Who is this Butler? Why are all these streets named for him? Well, it's named for Zebulon Butler and his family. Zebulon Butler came to the Wyoming Valley from Connecticut before the Revolution. He was one of the very first political and military leaders of our area. He served as the moderator of the town of Wyoming, which was a large expanse of the area, practically all of northeastern Pennsylvania, an area that was called Westmoreland County by Connecticut, but not by Pennsylvania. But we'll get into that later. So before the Revolutionary War, Zebulon Butler already had a military service. He was an ensign in 1756 for the French and Indian War. He got promoted to be a captain and served with the 2nd Regiment of Connecticut Line. He was in the Battle of Havana and got shipwrecked on the shores of Cuba. And then he came back to America and served in the Revolutionary War as the founding commanding officer of the 24th Regiment for Connecticut, the predecessor of the 109th that we still serve in this area today. Zebulon Butler is most known for being the leader of the American forces during the Battle of Wyoming, that fateful day on July 3rd, 1778, when we lost nearly 300 of our young boys and men, because the regular Continental Army was off and serving, and only old men and young boys were left behind to fight in that particular battle. After the Revolutionary War, Zebulon Butler was very involved with the political establishment in creating Wilkes-Barre and Luzerne County. The county was created on September 25th, 1786, and Zebulon Butler received a commission to find a suitable spot for the first courthouse and for a jail, both chosen at Public Square. His own house on River Street and Northampton Street served as the first place for courts to be formed for the Court of Common Pleas for Luzerne County. On September 25th, 1786, when Luzerne County was created, Zebulon Butler was appointed a commissioner in charge of finding the right suitable place for the first courthouse and for the first jail. The site chosen was Public Square for both the courthouse and the jail. When Butler moved to Wilkes-Barre in 1773, he built a log cabin at the corner of Northampton and River Street on lot number 3. The original village of Wilkes-Barre was laid out in 53-acre lots. Lot number 1 was at the corner of South and South River Street, where Kirby Hall is today. Lot number 3 was at the corner of River and Northampton, all the way to lot number 12, the parking lot for the courthouse, and it zigzagged across what we would call downtown Wilkes-Barre today till you got to lot number 50, which is owned by the Slocum Family, where the Turkey Hill gas station is today. Zebulon Butler lived at lot number 3 in his house on River and Northampton Street until 1785. His son Lord Butler then moved into the house at the corner of Northampton and River Street. And now let's go take a look at where Lord Butler is buried with his father Zebulon and talk more about Lord Butler. During the Revolutionary War, Lord Butler became the quartermaster for Fort Wilkes-Barre. He served in that capacity until the end of the war in 1783. He has an illustrious life in Wilkes-Barre and has what I think is the coolest name in Wilkes-Barre. Most people probably thought he was a member of the British House of Lords with the name of Lord Butler, but his first name actually comes from his mother's maiden name, Anne Lord. And Lord Butler's name continues to this day through various families around Wilkes-Barre. Following the Revolutionary War, Lord Butler became extremely involved in the city of Wilkes-Barre. He held 13 different political offices. He was the first sheriff for Luzerne County. Served as a Brethaunetary, the Register of Wills. He served also on the Supreme Executive Council of the state of Pennsylvania. That was the intermediate government after the Revolution to the Pennsylvania Constitution of 1790. He served as the first president of Wilkes-Barre City Council and then served as the second Burgess of Wilkes-Barre. Burgess, by the way, is an old term for the mayor of a borough. Lord Butler was very active in politics and even got into scuffles with the state government. County offices that he had, he was ceremoniously dismissed by a new governor in Pennsylvania named Thomas McKean. They're from different political parties, and McKean goes down in American history of being the father of the spoils system because his political party was different from Lord Butler, but Lord Butler got dismissed from all his positions. Lord Butler had 10 children, and 2 of his sons, John Butler and Lord Butler, went off into the coal business and created the Butler Coal Company. He also had a son that served the United States Congress by the name of Chester Pierce Butler, and oddly enough, or interesting enough, he sat next to Abraham Lincoln in the Congress of 1846. The Butler family is one that is well known throughout northeastern Pennsylvania, and now you know why. Let's go to Harvey, Slocum, Richards, and Buckley. So the next father-son team to serve in the Revolutionary War is Benjamin Harvey Sr. and his son Elisha Harvey. Just like Zebulon Butler and Lord Butler, this was a father-son team in the war. Both the Harveys were native of Lyme in New London County, Connecticut, and they came to Plymouth Township in 1772. Father and son served with the 10th Company of the 24th from the Huntington-Salem Township area and served under Captain John Franklin. Benjamin Harvey built the Shawnee Fort at Plymouth, of which has a chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution named for it today. Benjamin Jr. served with Captain Robert Durkee's company, and he dies in 1777. Another Harvey, Silas, died at the Battle of Wyoming. Benjamin, Elijah, and 7 others were abducted by Indians in December of 1780 and taken to Fort Niagara in Canada. Elijah was traded a few times, once for half a barrel of rum, and he returned home in 1782. Benjamin Sr. was released in 1781, and he walked back home. At Tioga Point, he followed the Susquehanna by canoe. He abandons his canoe at Bowman's Creek, goes through the woods to a large natural lake which becomes known as Harvey's Lake. He finds an outlet, Harvey's Creek, and makes his way all the way back home. Elisha Harvey marries Rosanna Jameson in 1786, and son Jameson Harvey's father of William Jameson Harvey and Henry Harrison Harvey became leading men in the coal and lumber operations. William was a member of the 1892 Electoral College for President Benjamin Harrison. Johnston Slocum goes down in history for patriotic service in the American Revolution. There are several ways that you can serve in the Revolution, and some of them would be obviously the military. Others would be considered patriotic for deeds that they did. Johnston Slocum unfortunately got killed by Native Americans in December 16, 1778. Father of Frances Slocum, the famous lost daughter of Wyoming, was abducted by Native Americans on November 2nd in 1778. Jonathan Slocum was born in Kent County in Rhode Island, and he married Ruth Tripp in 1751. Slocums and the Tripps were both Quakers, so-called Protestants of the Puritans, and they were very friendly with Indians. It's sad, though, that this friendship did not happen long because Frances Slocum and her 2 brothers are all abducted by Indians. In 1777, Slocums and their 9 children came to Wilkes-Barre. Jonathan first visited in 1771. One of Jonathan Slocum's son, Giles, survived the Battle of Wyoming. His daughter, Judith Slocum, married Hugh Forsman, also a survivor of the Battle of Wyoming. His son, William Slocum, was wounded on December 16, 1778, and he goes on to be elected Luzerne County Sheriff in 1795. His son Ebenezer was elected Justice of the Peace and owned 1,800 acres, which would become Scranton. His other son Benjamin was the first postmaster for Providence, which merged into the city of Scranton, and his son gave land for the Wyoming Courthouse in Tunkhannock. Another son, Joseph, married Sarah Fell, daughter of Jesse Fell, and Joseph builds the very first brick house on Public Square. They have a daughter named Ruth, who will marry William Ross. Samuel Richards served in the Revolutionary War in the Continental Army, a captain of the Connecticut line. He fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill and Ticonderoga. His daughter Cornelia marries John Lord Butler, grandson of Zebulon Butler. Eliphas Buckley was a prominent officer in the Connecticut troops in the Revolution, a captain of the Colchester Company that responded to the Lexington Alarm. That's at the Battle of Lexington and Concord on April 19, 1775. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel in May of 1780. His sister Julia Buckley marries the son of Zebulon Butler, Steuben Butler, who owned a bookstore on Public Square, hence Butler Alley, that runs today behind Public Square from Main Street to Washington Street. Now we'll go over to Hollenback, to Matthias, the patriarch of the family, and we'll talk about his son George and his grandchildren. So welcome to the final resting place for the namesake of Hollenback Cemetery, George Hollenback. But it was his father Matthias who first immigrated here to Wilkes-Barre and served in the Revolutionary War. Matthias Hollenback served with Robert Durkee's company in the 24th Connecticut Regiment. He also served with the Wyoming Independent Companies that was in the Battle of Trenton, Princeton, and Brandywine. He returned home in 1778 and served at the Battle of Wyoming, narrowly escaping with his life as he swam across the Susquehanna River to escape. Following the Revolutionary War, Matthias Hollenback grew a large concern of mercantile stores, was also a farmer, and amassed a huge amount of land. Legends say he had so much land that he could ride his horse along the Susquehanna River all the way to the New York state line. But it's only a legend. He was in business with mercantile stores. He had opened up his first store on Public Square, and then after the Revolutionary War, he moved down to South Main Street where his son George was born. In 1806, when the borough of Wilkes-Barre was created, Matthias Hollenback was elected to the first town council. He also served as an associate justice with the Court of Common Pleas for Luzerne County because he was widely respected as an impartial person to serve justice. According to the 1810 tax rolls for Luzerne County, Matthias Hollenback was the richest person in Luzerne County. Now mind you, at that time, Luzerne County was all of northeastern Pennsylvania. When Matthias Hollenback dies in 1829, he leaves his son George over $400,000 in thousands and thousands of acres of land. George Hollenback becomes also the richest person in Luzerne County over his lifetime, and he dies in 1866 with a massive fortune parceled out to his nephews. One of his nephews he actually adopted and had him change his name to Hollenback to ensure the Hollenback male line would continue. Sad to say, his nephew John Wells, who becomes John Wells Hollenback, did not have any male children, so the Hollenback line dies out. But the family continued through the Wells family. And back in 2016, when Virginia Wells dies, the last of the Hollenback Wells family, I calculated that their DNA was around Public Square for 249 straight years. Now let's go to Davis and Jones, the Bowman brothers, and Jacob Johnson. This monument is very interesting because it is the third and final resting place of Captain Joseph Davis and Lieutenant William Jones. Following the Battle of Wyoming, General Washington ordered General John Sullivan to have an extended systematic military campaign against the Loyalist Tories and the Iroquois who sided with the British during the American Revolutionary War. Both Captain Davis and Lieutenant Jones were killed by Native Americans as they were approaching Wilkes-Barre over Giant's Despair. They were slain on April 23, 1779, and buried off of Northampton Street. Later, their bodies were removed to the Wilkes-Barre Burial Ground, the first cemetery that was in the borough of Wilkes-Barre, where present-day City Hall is today. And then, when Hollenback Cemetery was created in 1855, their bodies were moved from the old cemetery to its new resting place. They've traveled many times in their death. Sixth-generation family from Lexington, Massachusetts, the Bowmans, had several of their sons in the Revolutionary War. Ebenezer Bowman was a Minuteman at Lexington and Concord and was at the Battle of Bunker Hill. A graduate of Harvard, he studied law with Samuel Sitgraves in Easton and then moved to Wilkes-Barre. Became one of the first members of the bar to practice law in the new Luzerne County that was created in 1786. Also became a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. He was originally buried at the St. Stephen's Episcopal Churchyard and then moved to Hollenback in the 1860s. Samuel Bowman was one of 7 brothers that fought in the American Revolution. Also a Minuteman at Lexington on the morning of April 17, 1775, when a shot was heard around the world. He was commissioned as a lieutenant in the 1st Massachusetts Infantry and served to the end of the war in 1783, becoming a member of the Society of Cincinnati soon after its organization. Samuel Bowman also became a charter member of Lodge 61 of the Free and Accepted Masons, elected to the first town council of Wilkes-Barre in 1806, and also was buried in St. Stephen's Churchyard and then moved to Hollenback Cemetery in the 1860s. When the Connecticut Yankee settlers came to the Wyoming Valley, they brought their state church with them. The official church of Connecticut at the time was Congregationalists, and when a minister for the gospel was needed, Zebulon Butler wrote to the Connecticut Missionary Society, and they hired the Reverend Jacob Johnson. He came in 1772 and led the Congregational Society of Wilkes-Barre and helped build the Wilkes-Barre Meeting House on Public Square with the support of several denominations. He was the founder of what would become the First Presbyterian Church of Wilkes-Barre. His daughter Lydia Johnson becomes Colonel Zebulon Butler's second wife. Now let's go to Ross. Many families experienced tremendous loss during the American Revolution, none more than the Ross family. Jeremiah Ross had 3 sons in the Battle of Wyoming. Perrin Ross and Jeremiah Jr. both lost their life. Young William Ross did survive, but only so because he gave up his rifles to his brothers. William Ross stayed behind in Forty Fort during the Battle of Wyoming. Following the battle, and later after the Revolutionary War was ended, William Ross went on to become a brigadier general in the Pennsylvania militia. During the Second Yankee-Pennamite conflict, Captain Ross at the time went off to rescue Timothy Pickering. Timothy Pickering was sent by Philadelphia to establish the county of Luzerne, and radical elements within the Yankee community captured him, kidnapped him, and took him up to the mountains. It was up to Captain Ross to save Timothy Pickering, and in gratitude from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Charles Biddle signed as Secretary of the Pennsylvania Supreme Executive Council a sword as a token of appreciation to William Ross's service to Pennsylvania. William Ross's son, also named William Ross, also became a brigadier general. Both father and son served in the state senate. Son William also served as president of Wilkes-Barre City Council and became president of Wyoming National Bank. When William Ross died in 1868, he gave up his bank seat to his wife, Ruth Tripp Slocum Ross. And the stained glass window in St. Stephen's Church, the big round rose window, is named in her honor. No tour of Hollenback Cemetery is complete without visiting Jesse Fell. During the Revolutionary War, Jesse Fell served with the 3rd Battalion of the Bucks County Militia. He moves to Wilkes-Barre in 1785, and by 1787, he builds his famous tavern, what he called the Buck, what we call Old Fell House. It was on February 8th of 1808 that Jesse Fell had his famous coal experiment, where he took a simple metal grate and stuck it in his fireplace, and anthracite coal burned without a forced draft, completely revolutionizing the way we heated our homes up and down the East Seaboard. At the Old Fell Tavern at the corner of Washington and Northampton Street is where Jesse Fell hosted parties for the city of Wilkes-Barre when it was created as a borough in 1806. In 1826, at the 50th anniversary of the Revolutionary War, Jesse Fell again hosts a big party in the city of Wilkes-Barre to honor the 50th anniversary of the founding of America. In 1886, when Luzerne County was created, Jesse Fell was appointed one of the first 6 associate judges of Luzerne County. He wasn't a lawyer. The president of the court was the attorney, and esteemed citizens would be appointed to be associate judges of the court. He was very respected. And of course, being a tavern owner, he knew everybody in Wilkes-Barre. And when it came to the 1806 election for officers for the borough of Wilkes-Barre, he was elected the first town burgess. We owe Jesse Fell a debt of gratitude. Because of him, most of our ancestors moved to the Wyoming Valley to mine the anthracite coal. Hope you really liked episode 2 of Diamond City Trail of History. If you like this video, please become a member of the Wilkes-Barre Preservation Society. You'll help us make more of these videos. As you know, these are just thumbnail sketches. We could have done a whole half-hour program on the Butlers and another half-hour on Hollenbacks. Behind me is the Zebulon Butler House, the oldest house in Wilkes-Barre that the Wilkes-Barre Preservation Society is in the process of restoring. If you'd like to support the Wilkes-Barre Preservation Society, help us restore the Zebulon Butler House, the oldest house in Wilkes-Barre, please see the link below and join. If you'd like to collaborate with us on doing more of these videos, please see the contact information below. If you want to research these families yourself and learn more about the architecture of Wilkes-Barre, social history of Wilkes-Barre, I'll leave a list of books below.